2011 Cleveland Browns. Why are we doing this video? Cleveland Browns, my God. And I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Why would I be talking about Cleveland? Well, we're going to talk about a win total. I'm Marco D'Angelo. I'm joined by Johnny Detroit. We're trying to isolate some teams where we feel there's some value with these numbers that they put out. And Cleveland Browns, this is a team, Johnny, that, they've been a laughing stock of the NFL for a long time. And as a
like the Detroit Lions.
As a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, we love that. There's the great rivalry with Pittsburgh and Cleveland because, they're both steel towns and 2.5 hour, distance between them and everything. But right now, the Browns, they fired Mangini, so you've got a new coach. And I can't emphasize the fact that heading into this season, this year, more than any other season, teams that have new coaching staffs are going to be behind the curve so far because with the lockout, they didn't get to start, having people look at their playbook, their defensive schemes, offensive schemes. They got new coordinators there, the whole 9 yards. This team's going to be a wreck. It's going to be a train wreck. So you know where I'm going. I'm looking at the under in this game. The over-under for wins is 6.5 wins for the Cleveland Browns. There's no way I see this team as a 7-9 team. I can't see it. Going back, this team, the last 3 years, they're 5-11, 5-11, 4-12. And, guys, you might see me referencing a magazine here, and I'm going to do a little plug. It's actually one of our pregame guys, and it is super great guy.
Really good friend of pregame.
Mark Lawrence, he puts out a magazine every year, and I tell you, for any handicapper, this is a must. I'm going to put it out there. Playbook magazine. Mark Lawrence and his staff do one hell of a job. I mean, you got everything at your fingertips. And I can tell you, I've been doing this for 32 years. There has not been a season I haven't had my playbook sitting on my desk all football season. Because what's nice about it, obviously at the beginning of the season, you want to look and see, with the college players and, how many starters are coming back and this and that. But he's got, the schedule for the whole year right there in front of you. So, a guy like me that's a situational handicapper, you like to find those spots where they got a big game this week and then it's a flat spot next week, this or that, a look-ahead game. But then you've got 10 years history right there in front of you, too, that you can look at and see what the teams have done against each other, for 10 years. So that's enough for the plug, but check it out. If you haven't, Playbook magazine, it's a great piece of work. Any handicapper should have it in his arsenal. But going back to Cleveland, Pat Shurmur takes over for Eric Mangini. As I said, they're bringing in new coordinators. They've got a young quarterback, Colt McCoy. And they play in a tough division. You got to go against the Steelers twice. You got to go against Baltimore twice. Now, obviously, Cincinnati's come back to the pack in that division.
And you look at their second game; they're on the road against Indy. And talk about a Debbie Downer is you're excited. You got a new coaching staff. I mean, but one thing that was the coaching staff they're bringing in has tons of experience. I mean, I don't know what the years. I read a think piece on it, and they broke down the coaching staff, and they brought in a lot of guys with a lot of NFL experience, but. You're all excited about the season. Your second game, you go on the road to face Peyton Manning, who just got a fat contract. They're thinking, everyone's talking Green Bay, talking Pittsburgh, now Philly with all the pickups. Indy, it kind of seems like, Peyton's getting older. They're not talked like the other teams are to win the Super Bowl. Indy's going to have something to prove. They could beat the piss out of Cleveland and kind of put them back to, kill all that momentum and motivation they have coming into the season with a new staff and a new team. I'm kind of on the fence. I mean, I like the pickups they have on the defensive side. They picked up defensive tackle Phil Taylor, and I apologize if I butcher this guy's name. He's a great pass rusher, Jabil Sherd, I think is how you say it. But like you said, football is one of the things where, hockey, you got a stud goaltender. Everyone else cannot do a thing. You could win 1-0 because he stops everything. You could have a stud pitcher, shuts everybody down. LeBron could go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, put up 60 and win a game by himself. The NFL has so many moving parts. You could have the best quarterback in the world, but the offensive lineman has an off day. He's on his ass the whole game. I think one question mark is, the only reason I know this name is for two reasons. One, I had a guy in my fantasy football league that had him, as Peyton Hillis was a monster in fantasy. And one, not gonna lie, I always root for a white running back. It's like you're on the couch, like, get a white running back. Can Peyton Hillis be a stud again, or was it that fluke year? And then you have Colt McCoy. it's really hard. To me, I'd rather pass because on under the win total, because there are so many variables. The new coaching staff, will the team take to the new system? Like you mentioned in the video I did on the Lions, usually there's a plan. The first year is getting all your moving pieces, so you're building the team up, and you're usually shitting the bed the first year. The second team, you need to see some progress. By year 3, they want to start seeing more wins and losses. By year 4, they're hoping you make the playoffs or you're hitting bricks. Cleveland has, young quarterback. You could still say an untested, Peyton Hillis. I mean, teams are obviously going to key on him more this year. You picked up some, new guys in the defensive side, plus new coaches. Tossing all those variables, plus the track history that they've had, I either think you either got to shy away from this or do what you're saying and say that they're going to,
I'm going under total. And like you said, we're saying this team's going to have growing pains at the beginning of the season. Okay, maybe they win that first game against Cincinnati. Okay, home opener, everything. So let's go ahead and give them that. Then you say they got to play Indianapolis. Then they play in week 3 and 4. They're both at home, but they play Miami, who wasn't really that bad of a ball club last year. There's some missing pieces there, but that team played good at times. They've got a good running game and that nature. Then they play Tennessee in game 4. Now, Tennessee's a team that I think is going to struggle early because you've got Hasselbeck coming in. It's going to be a different situation going to a new team learning system. But now this is going to be, he's going to have the whole preseason, and now it's going to be game 4 of the regular season. This Tennessee team was a playoff contender just a couple years ago. Last year they had all of the problems, Vince Young and everything else, and Fisher kind of lost that team's control. That's going to be a tough game in week 4. So I think of the beginning of the season, for the first 4 weeks, they're going to have 3 decent games that, they could come out of there at 1-3. Forget about how they start.
Right.
Look at the close of the season. This is murderous for Cleveland. They finished the season, the last 5 weeks, listen to this, at home to Baltimore, on the road to the Steelers. You got to play Baltimore and Pittsburgh in back-to-back weeks.
Right.
Your body is going to be so beat to hell after those 2 games. Then you got to go on the road to Arizona, which Arizona, now you're going to catch Arizona at the end of the season when, Cobb's going to be, well into that system. They've got a prolific passing, the wide receivers there with Larry Fitzgerald and everything. That's not going to be an easy game. And after playing 2 physical games against the Steelers in Baltimore, I've talked many times about stats. Teams that play the Steelers the following week, they're bad because they're so beat up. Then they come back after the Arizona game and they go to Baltimore, and then they finish the season with Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh and Baltimore, if any indication of the last few years, it's going to go down to the final week of the season that they're going to still need to win for either the division, because those 2 battle it out, or you're talking home field advantage. So you're not going to get sometimes a team that's got a big lead is going to mail a game in at the end of the season. Those should be meaningful games for the Steelers and the Ravens. Cleveland's in trouble. I got to go under 6.5 wins.
And real quick is to point out what you said with those final games is right now Baltimore, they have them at 11 wins. So you have to assume that Vegas is factoring that Cleveland game is 2 of those. They have Pittsburgh at 11 wins. When you look at the odds to win the Super Bowl, Pittsburgh sitting at 10-1, and you got the Ravens at 9-1. These are teams that, in the eyes of odds makers and the experts, they have a schedule, like you said, with the Pittsburghs and the Baltimores, that the experts say have a legitimate shot at winning the Super Bowl. And you got Cleveland, who they're saying they might win 6, they might get lucky and win 7. That's what the 6.5 is they're going to be in the 6 and 7 ballpark. But now they're facing teams on the flip side that they're saying, yeah, they're going to win at least 11, and they might have a chance to win the Super Bowl. So like I said, in my opinion, I'm skipping it. But, if I had to place a bet, I'm jumping on the other because I can't see how to take the over because it's strictly a gamble. You're hoping the young quarterback comes out and he plays good. You're hoping a whole new coaching staff sinks. The defensive pickups sink. Peyton Hillis comes out and he does repeat what he does last year, and that's assuming all the defensive coordinators in the NFL are idiots and say, wow, this guy goes getting 80 points a week in fantasy football. We're not going to change up our game plan to stop this crazy white boy this year.
Like you said, if the Steelers and the Ravens are both projected at 11 wins, where's Cleveland in that division getting to 7-9?
Exactly.
So there you have it. That's my win total for you. The Cleveland Browns under, take them under the total, 6.5 wins. That's my pick. We're going to be back. We're going to look at one more team that's gotten a lot of talk the last couple of years for a different reason, because Brett Favre was there. No Brett Favre this year for the Minnesota Vikings, but we're going to take a look at them in the next video, the Minnesota Vikings. He's Johnny Detroit. I'm Marco D'Angelo. We'll be right back.